exclusive new reporting about White House efforts to respond to CNN and other reporting about Russian contacts with high-level advisors of then-candidate Donald Trump last year. Jim Sciutto, Evan Perez, they broke the story with Pamela Brown, Shimon Prokupecz, and Manu Raju. Evan and Jim join us now. Jim, first of all, what did you find out?
Well, if this is what we're learning, CNN is told that the FBI rejected a recent White House request to publicly knock down media reports about communications during the 2016 presidential campaign between Donald Trump's associates and Russians known to U.S. intelligence. Multiple U.S. officials tell CNN that the White House sought the help of the Bureau and other agencies investigating the Russia matter to say that the reports were wrong and that there had been no contacts, these officials tell CNN. You will recall that CNN and the New York Times first reported on this just over a week ago. And Wolf, so far we've reached out to the White House, but the White House has not yet commented on the record.
Evan, this clearly is not a typical request. How did it start?
That's right, Wolf. A U.S. law enforcement official tells us that this began with the FBI Director Andrew McCabe and White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus on the sidelines of a separate White House meeting on the day after those stories were published. A White House official, however, disputes that account, saying that McCabe called Priebus early that morning and said that a New York Times story vastly overstated what the FBI knows about these Russia contacts. The White House official said that Priebus later reached out again to McCabe and then to FBI Director James Comey, asking for the FBI to at least talk to reporters on background to dispute the stories. But a law enforcement official says that McCabe didn't discuss aspects of the case and wouldn't, however, say exactly what McCabe told Priebus. I should add, Wolf, that this is a highly unusual thing for someone high level at the FBI, a deputy director of the FBI, to be reaching out to the White House Chief of Staff to be discussing an ongoing investigation.
Yeah, the FBI so far has had no comment.
No comment, correct.
You know, Jim, in the end, the White House had Reince Priebus deny the story. He went on Fox News, a week or so ago and said this.
The New York Times last week put out an article with no direct sources that said that the Trump campaign had constant contacts with Russian spies. Basically, you know, some treasonous type accusations. We have now all kinds of people looking into this. I can assure you, and I've been approved to say this, that the top levels of the intelligence community have assured me that that story is not only inaccurate, but it's grossly overstated, and it was wrong, and there's nothing to it.
But, Jim, the investigation is still going on.
The fact is, this is still an open question. It's a matter of investigation. The FBI, we know, is still investigating these communications. Several members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees tell CNN that Congress as well still investigating those alleged contacts. And in fact, that investigation has begun. Wolf, they've started to collect documents and records as they begin this congressional probe.
Evan, why is this not a typical back and forth between the White House and the FBI?
Well, Wolf, the communication between the White House and the FBI are unusual because of a decade-old restriction on such contacts. The request from the White House is a violation of those procedures to limit communications with the FBI on pending investigations. And the Trump administration's efforts to press Comey, contrary to the Justice Department procedures that are contained in memos issued in 2007 and 2009 that are intended to directly limit these types of communications on pending investigations between the White House and the FBI. We know that the FBI Director, James Comey, rejected the request, according to the sources we've been talking to, because the alleged communications are the subject of an ongoing investigation. And Wolf, obviously, again, I underscore that it is, if indeed the Deputy Director of the FBI reached out first thing in the morning to try to tamp down these stories and to try to give the White House this guidance, that is also highly unusual.
Evan Perez, Jim Sciutto, thanks for that reporting, exclusive reporting, I might add. Let's get some more on all of this. Democratic Congressman Andre.
So, Pamela, the White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, Evan's talking about him. He denies the story. This is what he said on Fox News Sunday earlier this week.
The New York Times last week put out an article with no direct sources that said that the Trump campaign had constant contacts with Russian spies. Basically, you know, some treasonous type accusations. We have now all kinds of people looking into this. I can assure you, and I've been approved to say this, that the top levels of the intelligence community have assured me that that story is not only inaccurate, but it's grossly overstated, and it was wrong, and there's nothing to it.
So, Pamela, is the investigation still going on?
It is going on in the FBI's counterintelligence division. Also, several members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees tell CNN that Congress is still investigating those alleged contacts. That has begun, and they are starting to collect documents and records as well, Aaron.
Which is obviously important. That's what's going to determine what really happened here and answer all the questions so many have. Evan, this is not a typical back and forth, though, between a White House and the FBI. There may be disagreements, but this is not how it usually plays out, right?
That's right, Aaron. The communication between the White House and the FBI is unusual because of a decade-old restriction on such contacts. Now, the request from the White House is technically a violation of these procedures that were meant to limit communications with the FBI on pending investigations. Now, the Trump administration's efforts to press Comey to run contrary to Justice Department procedure memos that were issued in 2007 and 2009 that limit direct communications on pending investigations between the White House and the FBI. Now, the FBI Director Comey rejected the request that came from the White House, according to the sources we talked to, because the alleged communications are still the subject of an ongoing investigation, Aaron.
All right, thank you.
In a rare joint appearance this afternoon, President Trump's top advisors, the political strategist Steve Bannon and the Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, denied reports of behind-the-scenes conflicts over at the White House. They also talked about the president's long-term agenda. Let's bring in our political experts. And Gloria Borger, let me start with you. They made a big deal about being very close, working together. They also made a big deal about going after the news media. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that the agenda is not going to change, that Steve Bannon and Reince Priebus are united in their efforts to get the president's agenda through. And the way they describe their relationship is that Priebus is the one who makes the trains run on time, and Bannon is the one who reminds him of the campaign and what the president's promises were and how they are supposed to deliver. I think that Bannon is clearly the visionary here. I don't think Donald Trump would like him to be called Donald Trump's brain, but he is the visionary. And from listening to him today, he is not changing or relenting at all one bit, even if some members of the Republican establishment want him to, and including stop attacking the media, but he's not going to stop doing that either. This is who he is. This is how they won, and they're going to continue.
You know, Mark, Bannon doesn't make a lot of public appearances. I think this may have been his first public appearance. Why now? Why at this specific conference?
Well, CPAC is certainly a very friendly venue for Steve Bannon. And for our viewers out there who haven't heard about it, it's held once a year. It's been held since the 70s. And it's really the ultimate gathering of conservatives, but specifically young conservatives, young kids who come in, college age, who come in and they want to hear from the leaders in the party. And right now, Steve Bannon is clearly a leader of the Republican Party, even if some Republicans don't like him. Friendly audience. He talks about Trump's nationalist agenda. Themes like that play very well in a setting like CPAC.
You know, Dana, we heard a lot about how these two guys supposedly behind the scenes don't necessarily get along, but that clearly was a reason why the two of them showed up together today.
It is, and it actually bolsters some of what I have been hearing from sources close to both of them since really the president took office, which is that the stories about the discord and about the fact that there are two camps that are warring factions just aren't true, to the point that Steve Bannon actually said to me, I believe it was last week, that he was livid that his former publication Breitbart had a big splashy spread on the front of its website going after Reince Priebus. You know, remember, he was not that long ago the head of Breitbart, where they made it a point, and the whole kind of reason that they exist was to go after the Republican Party. Reince Priebus was the chair of the Republican Party until 2 months ago. But I do believe that they do need each other, and that they do have, both of them use the word today, partner, and they do have a partnership because, as Gloria said, they have very, very different jobs, very different skill sets. And when it comes to Bannon, I was told early on when he first came on the campaign in August that Donald Trump sees him as kind of a peer. He is a a very wealthy man, made a lot of money at, ironically, Goldman Sachs and doing investment banking, and that he also is kind of trying to lay the intellectual foundation for what is Trump's very, very unorthodox brand.
The president, Rebecca, tomorrow is going to be addressing the CPAC crowd over there. Last year, interestingly, he didn't even attend the CPAC conference in the middle of the Republican primaries. A lot of the other Republican presidential candidates did. Kellyanne Conway this morning was joking, this CPAC conference should now be called TPAC.
Well, it has a nice ring to it, certainly. It's worth noting that Donald Trump has been to CPAC in the past. 2 years ago, actually, I interviewed him there before he gave his speech, and he was using that appearance to sort of build up his platform among conservatives in advance of running for president. At that time, a lot of us didn't really take him as seriously as we did later on, but he was taking himself and that platform very, very seriously at that point in time and in years prior. But it's true that at that time and in previous appearances by Donald Trump at CPAC, people like Rand Paul were the big draws for a lot of the attendees. It skewed a lot more libertarian. But what you heard from Matt Schlapp, the organizer today, is that he considers the conservative movement to be sort of a big tent movement. Right now, Donald Trump is the leader of that movement. It's gone in a slightly different direction, but who knows where it could go in the future.
All right, everybody stand by. There's news coming into the situation where the president has just given an interview to Reuters speaking about a nuclear arms race. We'll have that and more when we come back.
Summer.